All right, so now that we know a little bit of the terminology, so we talked about some of that terminology, and you'll see that I cleaned up some of the text here. We're going to talk about something called a try-catch block. All right, so a try-catch. Oh, it decided it really wanted to make a circle out of that. So this is a try-catch block, and we're going to talk about what exactly a try-catch block is and why we might use it in a program. So a try-catch is really going to be something really simple that we're going to use to help us handle exceptions in our programs. And all it's going to do, and I'm going to write code in this, we're going to go with a green color for code. What we're going to do here is we're just going to write a try, and then we're going to have a nice little bracket there, and then we're going to have some code, and I'm just going to use that pink color in here, actually blue color in here, for comments. So code goes in there, and then we're going to go ahead and do close that bracket up, and then we're going to write catch, and we're going to write exception. We're going to catch a particular type of exception, and when we don't have a particular type we're going to catch, we're just going to use this generic exception class. So it's called an exception, and we got to give it a variable name just like we do any other parameter. And then we're going to have another block of code with that opening bracket, and we're going to close that bracket up here as well. And in here, this is code. So up here, this is code to try, and this is code to handle exception. Okay, so that's what a try-catch block generally looks like, and this is what we're going to be working with here. We want to make sure that we're able to work with this code in a way that makes sense. So a good example of something that we might do here, so let's say that we had some variables in here, and let's say that we actually knew what we were going to be doing. So let's say instead of these comments in here, we knew that we wanted to try to divide. So let's say we wanted to do some number is equal to x divided by y. But we don't know for sure what x or y is, right? So x and y could be anything. And let's say that, let's point at this y here. This y could, oh, that's hard to read. Could be 0. Okay? We don't know if that is 0 or not, and we know that we can't divide by 0. So this will generate something called an arithmetic exception. All right, so this generates, again, an arithmetic. So ooh, I keep hitting the erase button here. So this could be an It would help if I don't accidentally keep hitting that button while I'm trying to write here. So arithmetic exception. So if we were trying to divide by 0, the program can't actually divide by 0. Nobody can. We don't know what would happen. So that would generate an arithmetic exception. And then what we do here is we're going to handle what happens. So if we wanted to handle this in a interesting way, we might actually say, well, let's just always say that y equals that this number, instead of equaling x divided by y, we're just going to say that this number is going to always equal 0, and we're just going to continue on with the program as if nothing happened. Now, that's unlikely. That's probably not something we want to do. Instead, we probably want to know what exactly is going on, because there could be other arithmetic exceptions. We know what it probably is in this case, but we probably want to print out what exactly happened. So one way we can do that is that this exception always comes with a message. Now, no matter what kind of exception you have, you're going to get a message, and it's going to be e.message. And that's just going to get the message. And we don't need that there. We're going to just do that. So that should print out the message that we get from the exception, and we can see as a programmer what exactly is happening. The other thing we might want to do, because we didn't expect this particular exception to happen, we might want to, I don't want to print out something. Instead, I want to say exit. So maybe my program can't operate if for some reason that y is 0 or we get an arithmetic exception here. So we're just going to go ahead and exit the program. Now that could be something that we want to do. It could be that we don't want to do that, that we actually want to be able to continue with our program. The try catch block allows us to do whatever it is we need to do though. So we're just going to come down here a little bit further, and we're going to talk a little bit about actually we're going to come over to this side over here. So we're going to do what the example is in the book on page 529. We're going to go over that. So the example here in the book has a program where we have a scanner, right, dot in. Actually, no, it says scanner, and then we're going to call it keyboard. That's what the book calls it here. So scanner, keyboard. And hopefully you've seen something like this before. If not, this is how we get input from the keyboard. So scanner equals keyboard new, and then it's scanner. And we're going to just give it system dot in. That's what we give it so that we get input from the command line. So we've got keyboard scanner equals new scanner, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a number that we want to store things into. We're just going to go ahead and call it number, and it's going to be 0. And then we have a loop. So while not done, right? Oh, that also reminds me, in here, before we do that, actually, we need to define done, don't we? So here we have a Boolean, right? And that's going to be done, and it's going to equal false. All right, so now we can do while, and since this is the important part here, we're going to actually use the green text for that code again. So while not done, right, we're going to try. So here's that important piece again, try. All right. We are going to try to get a particular number. So what we're going to do is we're going to just tell the user system.out.println. We're going to say, give me a number, right? So that way, hopefully, the person using this program will give us a number. And then we're going to try something here. We're going to try to get a number. Using that keyboard that we instantialized. So keyboard dot next int, and this method here is just supposed to give us the next integer that a user puts in. Now what happens when the user doesn't do that, right? So if we can do this, we're just going to set done. Oh, it helps again if I can spell. We're just going to go ahead and set done equal to true. All right, so if it works, then we're going to do that. However, if this doesn't work, if we can't get an integer, our program is going to throw an exception. So we need to go ahead and catch that exception. So that's this part here. And we're going to catch a particular type of exception, and this is going to be an input mismatch exception. Okay, so this is a particular type of exception that can get thrown in this particular case. So we're going to ask for a number, it's going to try to give us a number, and then we're going to catch an input mismatch exception. And when that doesn't happen, when we don't get a particular number that we're wanting, we're going to do a keyboard. We're just going to go ahead and clear basically whatever the keyboard is giving us. So next line here. And we're not storing that, we're just reading it and getting it off of our stack, right? And then we're going to say system dot out. We're going to go ahead and print out a try again. So they know that we didn't get a number. All right. So once that happens, we're going to close this up. And that's it. That's how we're going to handle that. So if somebody wanted to give us a number and they didn't do it, then this is how we would cycle through until we got a number. Now, the other thing here is we want to make sure that we can also print out that number when we're done. So we'll just do system.out.println. And we're just going to print out number. So this whole try catch here that we're seeing, this whole thing, right here, is going to repeat until we get a number. It's just going to keep waiting and waiting for user input until we actually get a number, until we get an integer that we can use. And then it's going to say, all right, we're done, we've done it. And we're going to go ahead and print out that number at the end. That's the entire program. So that's an example of using a try-catch. There's a lot more interesting examples. This is a really good one just to get the basics of it and to get the idea of what it is to use this try-catch and different ways that we could do it. So we looked at this one over here. So this first one, this is a very simple, very simple example here where we're just going to say we want to quit. And this example over here is complex, and we're going to keep looping until we've gotten an answer that we want for this particular program, right? And some of you might think, well, what's so special about this? What is unique about this particular type of code, this try-catch block, over something like a fancy if statement? And what it comes down to is really semantics. Like, you could do a lot with the try-catch that you could just do with an if-else statement, particularly in our simple examples. For example, this divide by 0, so this number equals x divided by y. We could just do an if to see if y is 0, and if it's 0, then we just don't do the math and we continue on. But we want to be able to handle more complex issues, so something like what we have on this right-hand side here is going to be a little bit more involved, a little bit more useful for people, and it might be something that you find more useful than using something like an if-else kind of situation. So I really recommend don't just equate this to an if-else, a complex if-else, because it really is more than that. And the other thing that's really important here is that we can manually throw, right? We can, hold on. We can manually throw exceptions in these as well. And to do that, you're just going to say something like throw, and then you're going to say new, and you're going to have an exception class. And here I'm just using that base exception again. So we're just going to manually throw an exception. So this is what it would look like to manually throw an exception, and you would just do that inside of a try and a try catch block. So next we're going to talk about those exception classes, and I'm going to clean up this board a little bit, and we're going to talk about those exception classes that I mentioned.